Hey, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a concept that's right at the heart of Islamic tradition. It's basically a blueprint for social justice, one designed to create real balance and equality in a community. So let's get into it.
Everything we're going to talk about today really starts right here, with this one powerful verse from the Quran. It sets this incredibly radical standard. Your ultimate worth isn't about your bank account, your family name, or where you're from. Nope. It's measured by something totally different. Your character, who you are as a person.
So that gets you thinking, right? What would a society actually look like if this idea of universal equality wasn't just a nice thought, but the real, structural blueprint for its entire economic system? I mean, how would that even work? To really understand the system, we first have to get our heads around this core principle, this idea of universal human equality.
And this is the absolute key. This verse completely levels the playing field. In this worldview, your social status, how much money you have, your race, none of it matters in the grand scheme of things. The only thing that elevates one person over another is their moral and ethical conduct. That is a huge shift from how we normally measure a person's value.
Okay, so how do you take a principle like that and turn it into real, tangible action? Well, that brings us to the main mechanism designed to do just that. It's a system called zakat. So, what is zakat? Well, first off, it's not just optional charity, giving when you feel like it. It's considered an obligation, one of the 5 core pillars of Islam. It's a structured, mandated system specifically designed to support the vulnerable and tackle poverty head-on.
And how does it work? It's actually a pretty clear-cut process. First, you assess your wealth, everything you have above a certain minimum amount. Second, you calculate a specific share of that, which is usually 2.5% of your savings. And third, you distribute that money directly to people who need it, based on categories defined in the religious texts.
But listen, the goal here is so much bigger than just giving away some money. It's about actively redistributing wealth to create economic justice. It's about nurturing social bonds by shrinking the gap between the rich and poor. It's about breaking down the racial and tribal lines that separate us, and ultimately creating a more balanced, more compassionate community for everyone.
So, that's the theory. But what about in practice? Does it work? Let's take a look at the impact this system has had, both way back in history and right now, today. This timeline is pretty incredible, because it shows how this idea has just kept going. It started way back in 7th century Medina, helping to unite rival tribes. Then you jump forward to the Islamic Golden Age, and you see zakat, along with these charitable endowments called waqf, funding things like free hospitals and schools. And it's still happening today. From massive disaster relief in Pakistan to programs that are empowering thousands of women with job skills in Jordan.
And the potential impact is just massive. Get this. A 2023 World Bank report suggested that systems like zakat could slash extreme poverty by as much as 30% in the communities where they're used effectively. 30%!
Let's make that real. Just take Indonesia, for example. In 2022 alone, microfinance programs funded by zakat helped over 2 million people start their own businesses and find a real path out of poverty. 2 million people.
And what about building community? In 2024, zakat funds in Qatar gave out over 500 million rials to low-income families. And the goal wasn't just financial aid, it was also about strengthening social trust and that feeling that, we're all in this together.
The impact of this core principle has also echoed way beyond economics. I mean, a figure like Malcolm X was profoundly influenced by Islam's focus on racial equality. He used it as a spiritual and philosophical foundation in the fight for civil rights right here in America. Now, to give this a little more context, the source material actually compares this approach to charity and justice with a few other belief systems.
So the source points out that Islam's approach, zakat, is this obligatory, structured system that's meant to be universal. It contrasts this with Christianity's emphasis on love and charity, which it describes as less structured as a system, and with the Jewish concept of tzedakah, which is noted as sometimes having more of a focus within the ethnic community. The core ideas also really line up with humanist ethics of fairness and well-being.
All right, so let's bring all these big ideas right down to the ground level. How does this whole philosophy of justice actually translate into our everyday lives?
This saying from the Prophet Muhammad is, wow, it's so powerful and direct. It makes social responsibility feel not like some abstract idea, but like an immediate, personal duty you have to the person living right next door. It's a real gut check on your own faith and your own humanity.
And this principle shows up in really simple, practical ways. It's not always about writing a big check. It's about being a fair boss. It's about refusing to discriminate at work. It's about checking in on a neighbor who's struggling, or helping out a family member who's fallen on hard times. These are the small, daily acts of justice.
And then the Sufi mystic Rumi, he just adds this whole other spiritual layer. This isn't just a social or economic duty. For him, it's a pathway to God. The act of serving other people is actually seen as a way of connecting with the divine, of finding spiritual meaning in empathy and action.
So we'll leave you with this question to think about. When you look at this framework of everyone being connected and responsible for each other, what's the ripple effect of just one single act of fairness? How might one small, just act actually start to change the fabric of an entire community?